How's it going, people? Yeah, we're back with another video, and this will be episode 4 of the Whistleblowers interviews. In this one we're going to look at the assemblies. Now, I think it's a fantastic point we're bringing up here because not many people ever understood what the assemblies were, like who created them. Were there assemblies that already existed, which I believe there were, but we also heard a few things from other sources that Kim's Lifeforce hijacked other assemblies that were already existing, basically hijacking groups, stole their sources, their skills from them assemblies, interjected them into her own. And as you will hear from Ben's answer, it didn't turn out very good at all. So this question is for Ben. So this is what we asked Ben. Can you explain what were the purposes of the assemblies, how they were funded? Did anything good that's visible to all of us come from them? And what negativities were there that you're aware of? Also, we received some comments about what's going on with the assemblies. They wanted to know what's happening. They was told that they were ready to go with the internal humanitarian projects, but they got no communication or indication when the cash will arrive for their funding. Are you aware of any complaints and unrest from those running the country assemblies, and what were they? Here's an example of someone that sent a comment through to us that was in one of those assemblies. Lifeforce by Kimberly Ann Goguen Now, working in India since last 8 months and making district level team to grant fund for social work, but not received any funding yet. What's the truth behind it? Please let us know as soon as possible. So this is Ben's response.
The assemblies were a concept that Kim put forward so that people would put together a structure for government that was not corrupt in anticipation of her taking out the government structure that was corrupt. Tank Stefan Rowe would talk about this as well on the quote-unquote news, and encouragement was for every city, county, state, district, and ultimately country to achieve this. It was set up for failure from the beginning. Firstly, it was a monumental task for a very small contingent of followers in any of the areas with limited skills and pooled money to take on. People would gather in sometimes just a group of 3 or 4 and declare a president, vice president, secretary, treasurer. Then, as the assembly movement or an assembly grew, usually there would come some kind of friction. And there would be massive power struggles or gossip because egos were taking over. All the things in which anyone who was trying to restore the planet should not succumb. There was a United States Assembly. Of course, as I remember, Kim was the head of that. A New York Assembly, a Texas Assembly, a Polish Assembly, a number of African assemblies, India assemblies, an Australian Assembly, a Canadian Assembly, a New Zealand Assembly, a UK Assembly, Latin American assemblies, and more. And none of them really talked to one another and helped each other learn for a start. Eventually, some Telegram chat groups were set up for treasurers, presidents, secretaries, and vice presidents, even sharing knowledge, but it didn't really make a difference to progress. And by the way, those Telegram groups that were set up by volunteers, not by CARE or Lifeforce leadership. There was ground command who gave no real coaching or training or recommendations of structure, but would readily publicly name and shame certain assemblies for having power struggles or gossiping. In retrospect, it was absolutely a disgusting display of what should have been a leading edge leadership, if Kim is who she said she was. At some point, the idea of assemblies caught on enough across the world that there was someone appointed to being an assembly liaison. His name was Kelly. and he was from the United States. Of course, he was a volunteer, and of course, anybody helping him or trying to create or participate in assemblies also was a volunteer. We had been told that in order for an assembly to receive funding, and the inference was that would be coming any day now, and this was a few years ago, the assembly had to be ratified. Well, that seemed a logical thing to require, except for there was no clear set of tasks or structure given in order for ratification to occur. As far as I know, there was only one assembly that happened to ever get ratified, which I believe was Oregon, and was Kelly's assembly. And to my knowledge, even that assembly never received any funding whatsoever. Over time, Kelly seemed to put together more and more requirements and a more consistent structure for communicating what ratification prerequisites were. So literally, thousands of people from all over the world worked hard to achieve tasks like a mission statement, all kinds of policy stipulations, valid elections of officers, an address that was verified, and all manner of other hoops to jump through. Even then, some of the items were very vague, and people within assemblies would agonize over creating material properly. They would then submit it to Kelly and hear nothing back. Sometimes on those public calls that Kim held, a little bit like a queen holding court, I would hear people from Africa in particular saying they had sent in all their documentation, and why are they not hearing whether their assembly is ratified, or what changes they need to make if documentation is not acceptable. Some people in Africa were so desperate to get this kind of change of leadership put together, they would bicycle 20 or 40 kilometers in the middle of the night to a place where they could get internet signal just to hear or get on these calls. As assemblies eventually got closer to having valid ratification packages, per all those hoops that they jumped through, Kelly would throw them curveballs sometimes, which may have come from Kim or may have come from Kelly, or he would give them information that would actually set them back from progressing. And on top of that, his coaching was often quite vague. Then, all of a sudden, out of the blue, Kim got rid of Kelly and put all the assemblies on hold with no information about what would happen to them, what they should do moving forward, or when to expect an update from her changing the status from on hold to back in progress. So now, you have groups of anywhere from 10 to 100 people meeting at least once a week for the leadership team and another once a week for the General Assembly meeting, and then task forces that had been working on all of these different administration creations suddenly left with nothing to do. No direction, no guidance, and the hundreds and hundreds of hours they had put into their assembly up in smoke. Of course, it was all served up alongside of a healthy dose of the next drama, and who was actually killed, and having agents put on a mask to give in to them to parade as if they were still alive, and which Chinese submarine had been vaporized off the coast of New York, or whatever phantasmagorical concoction that could not be verified she could make so people would continue to be hooked on her quote-unquote intel and be distracted from the fact that she had just annihilated huge bodies of work done by people of the world following her commands. She shifted to recommending that people study what their local area needs for restoration were, and made it sound like people were asleep at the wheel because they didn't know enough about their areas. That seemed to be the new task: restoration projects. A lot of people got to work on these restoration projects and didn't have anywhere to submit them, or any kind of criteria for that either. Eventually, they were told to send them to a certain email address, and then they never heard, even if the submission was actually received, let alone anything about their project or whether the paperwork was good enough to receive funding whenever it came along. Just nothing. All of these assemblies were self-funded by donations of people in them. It was required that they have a website, so people would chip in to buy a domain and build a website. It was required that they date mail and send it to some kind of verified address that you had to send registered mail, and leave that package sealed so that proved your date of creating the assembly, and the mailing fees were self-funded. Many assemblies would chip in for paid email services. Depending on how far along they got, they would also chip in for creating a logo, or some volunteer in the assembly with graphic knowledge would make a logo. And the same went for having a proper seal made for that assembly, because people had these ideas that they were going to be passing different kinds of documentation that had to be verified as original by seal. Of course, inside some of these assemblies, there were people that had really good skill and knowledge and possibly enough administrative experience to go a fair way in taking over government offices and turning them towards working for good. But overall, it was really unrealistic to expect the level of professionalism and skill required to truly pull all that off out of a group of volunteers with good hearts. I wonder if Kim sometimes just sat back in her chair and laughed at the kind of foolishness that she could inspire people to get up to, and wonder how long it would take for them to start to complain that there wasn't really anything tangible coming from their efforts. The reality is, once again, everybody got taken for a ride on the Kim imagination train. There is no funding coming for assemblies. She has now dissolved them. If you missed that memo, go back and try to ask somewhere on one of the Care Telegram chats, like Essential Oils or UNN Field Messenger submissions, and see if you can get directed to the right place. But basically, I am pretty sure you will be told that assemblies have been dissolved and that they will not be funded. Oh, by the way, that's our fault as human beings because we're not evolved enough for conducting ourselves properly, according to Kim. You are probably not going to be told that it was always a sham and that they were never going to be funded, but that is the truth. To the best of my knowledge, there are no tangible results that anyone can see coming from any of the activities that were done to ratify assemblies. A few assemblies had good volunteer works in their communities, again, self-funded, but that was about it in terms of anything you could see as a result from the assembly endeavor.
So there you go. We've all wondered what it was all about, what the structure was, what's the purpose, what happened in the end, and of course, it's there is no more assemblies when it comes to Kim's area. But we understand Tank is starting off his own again with the brand Lifeforce, because originally he was the one that created it. And there were rumours that's one of the reasons why the assemblies got pulled, is because it had Tank's name all over it and not Kim, and Kim wanted it all to be about her. So it was that important, and the amount of noise she created about these assemblies was like it was one of the most important things on the planet. But now there isn't any. The most important thing to her right now is this assurance, care, and what comes with it. And it's just horrible. It's just horrible the way people are being treated. I mean, you've heard it from Ben himself. He said that, you know, there's people that had to travel a long way just to get to an internet cafe so that they could listen in on the updates for the assemblies. People having to vote like a structure in place, like government, like a mini government into each assembly, president, vice president, etc. I mean, it says it all for itself, doesn't it, really? How can you dump all that work just because she had a fallout with Tank? Yeah, what he allegedly done. If you want to listen to one of our other videos about what Tank did, what the rumours were, then you can do. But yeah, it was all dumped because of that. If this was so important, why can't all these people just get on? Why can't Kim get on with Kent, with Tank? Why can't she get on with Thomas Williams and everybody else? No, she can't, because it's all about her, nobody else. She doesn't care about any of you that are in her group, that watch her news channel, Spin, News and Spin, and she don't care if you get caught for watching IPTV illegally. She just wants the money in her bank account. That's all she cares about. Unfortunately, those of you that still believe in it, after years probably of following her, there's not much hope for you, I'm afraid. I don't really know what you need to hear and see before you open your eyes to it. Sometimes people don't wake up to this stuff unless it really impacts them directly. And sometimes it's a bit too late, and then they find it too difficult to cope with, and it affects them in different levels. This is why we're doing what we're doing now. It's not too late for anyone to get involved with what we're doing, especially if you've been involved with Kim's structure. We get it, we've been there, so we understand. But the likes of Tank, Lisa Thomas and people like that, Thomas Williams, no, not in our eyes, there isn't. You've done too much damage to people, and it breaks our heart to even to listen to the stories that people tell us, comments and stuff. Anyway, I must go. Take care, everyone, and okay, thank you very much, Ben, for your input on this. We really appreciate it, and we've had some great comments from people, positive stuff, so we'll keep these coming. Thanks very much. Bye bye.